I cannot believe what's happening in Ashbourne right now. Commanders fans, get ready, because what I'm about to share with you today is going to completely change your perspective on this season. We have a long shot that nobody saw coming making waves in training camp. A 36-year-old veteran telling the entire world he can still destroy quarterbacks. And Adam Peters' most expensive bet showing up at camp looking like a completely different player. If you thought you knew this roster, you're about to find out how wrong you were. Stick around until the end, because the last news is absolutely explosive and could define our entire season. Look, I know you're thinking about the big names, the stars, the players who will define the season. But let me tell you something I've learned after years following this team. Sometimes the biggest surprises come from where we least expect them. And that's exactly what's happening with a tight end you probably didn't even know was on our roster. We're talking about Tyree Jackson, a 6'7" giant causing a stir in practices. Zach Selby, the team's official writer, was so impressed he had to write about him after the second day of camp. And you know what shocked him the most? An incredible sideline catch during 7-on-7 drills that left everyone speechless. But let's dive deeper into this, because Jackson's story is fascinating. This man isn't just tall. He's extraordinarily tall for a tight end. When I say 6 feet 7 inches, you need to visualize that. Rob Gronkowski is 6 feet 6 inches tall. Travis Kelce is 6 feet 5 inches. Jackson is taller than both. Do you understand the physical advantage that represents in the red zone? Now, I'm telling you this. When you have Zach Ertz, John Bates, and Ben Sinnott practically locked in on the roster, making noise as a rookie tight end is almost impossible. Ertz is a future Hall of Famer with 3 Pro Bowls and a Super Bowl ring. Bates has been consistently reliable for years. Sinnott was our second draft pick and has all the potential in the world. But Jackson isn't just any rookie. And here's where the story gets interesting. This man is taller than all of them and has a wingspan that's simply one of a kind in the entire league. Selby described him perfectly. Jackson has a unique frame that's rare to find at any position. Can you imagine that figure in the red zone? Can you imagine Jaden Daniels throwing a fade to that human tower? Cornerbacks who normally cover tight. Ends measure between 5 feet 10 inches and 6 feet 2 inches. Jackson has a 5 to 9 inch advantage over them. That's not just an advantage. That's a tremendous difference. But here's the real story. The one many don't know, and that makes this situation even more intriguing. Jackson wasn't always a tight end. This man was a quarterback at Buffalo. Quarterback throughout his college career. He was the man reading defenses, making decisions, understanding the game from the most complex perspective possible. You know what that means? It means that when Jackson is running a route, he knows exactly what the quarterback is looking for. He knows how to read the defense because he used to do it himself. He understands concepts, progressions, windows of opportunity. That understanding of the game is not something you can teach in a classroom. It comes from years of experience. Making those decisions under pressure. After Buffalo, he went through Philadelphia, where the Eagles, who have an exceptional track record of developing tight ends, saw something special in him. Then he went to the Giants, but injuries held him back just when it seemed he was starting to find his rhythm. But here comes the fascinating part. The Commanders didn't just sign him as a favor or to fill numbers. Peters and his staff watched the tapes, analyzed his potential, and decided to invest in him. And you know what's the craziest part of all this? They gave him a future reserve contract after having him on the practice squad. Adam Peters doesn't do that by accident. When Peters sees long-term potential, he acts. Peters isn't the kind of GM who makes sentimental decisions. Every move he makes is calculated, based on deep analysis and potential projection. But let's be realistic about his chances. The odds of Jackson making the 53-player roster are extremely low. We not only have Ertz, Bates, and Sinnott practically guaranteed, but we also have Colson Yankoff, an undrafted free agent from last year who already has a year of experience in the system. Teams typically keep between 3 and 4 tight ends, and those spots are already occupied. But here's what's interesting, and this is where I think the organization is playing chess while others are playing checkers. If Jackson continues to make these kinds of impressions, if he keeps making spectacular catches, if he continues to show that his transition from quarterback to tight end is progressing, do you really think we're going to let him go? The practice squad exists exactly for cases like this, to develop that kind of unique talent you don't find on every corner. And with the new practice squad rules allowing more flexibility, Jackson could be that long-term project that becomes something special. Imagine this. Year 2 or 3, Jackson has fully developed his route technique, perfected his blocking, maximized his understanding of Cliff Kingsbury's offensive system. What kind of mismatch does he represent then? A 6'7" tight end with a quarterback mindset, who understands the game at a higher level. And here's the detail many are overlooking. Jackson comes from Mona Shores High School in Michigan, a school that has produced elite talent. That athletic pedigree combined with the football intelligence he developed as a college quarterback, that's a very rare combination. The key for Jackson is going to be the preseason. Those games will be his golden opportunity to show that he cannot only make catches in practice, but can produce when the lights are on. And there's tape that scouts from other teams are going to analyze. If he can have standout performances in preseason, especially in red zone situations, that will validate the investment the organization has made in him. If that surprises you, wait until you hear about a veteran who's defying all the expectations of time. At 36 years old, when most players are already thinking about retirement, when their bodies are screaming, it's time to stop, Von Miller is here telling everyone he can still get out of bed and wreck quarterbacks. Did you hear that? This man said he can do his job as soon as he wakes up with his shoes on. But let's analyze this more profoundly, because what Miller is saying isn't just veteran bravado. This is a man who's been at this level for 14 seasons, who has seen everything the NFL can offer, and who still genuinely believes he can compete at the highest level. Let me rush. That's what I do, said Miller with a confidence that only comes from years of proven excellence. I can get out of bed at 36 with my shoes on and rush the quarterback. And I can do that as soon as I wake up, fresh from sleep. I love rushing the quarterback. Look, I've seen plenty of veterans reach the end of their careers trying to convince everyone they still have something in the tank. But Von Miller isn't trying to convince anyone. This man is declaring he's still a threat. And when someone with 129.5 career sacks, a Super Bowl MVP, 8 Pro Bowls tells you that, you have to listen. But let's analyze why the Commanders made this bet. They gave him $6.1 million guaranteed with incentives that can reach up to $10.5 million. In today's market, that's not an astronomical amount for an edge rusher, but it's not pocket change either. Adam Peters made that investment. For a very specific reason, our numbers in the fourth quarter were absolutely pathetic last year. We ranked 30th in the league with only 5 sacks in the fourth quarter. 5 sacks in the entire fourth quarter for the whole season. Do you understand how catastrophic that is? The fourth quarter is when games are decided. It's when opposing quarterbacks are trying to lead game-winning drives. It's when you need pressure more than ever. And we just weren't generating it. When we needed it the most, our pass rush completely disappeared. And do you know what that means in practical terms? It means Josh Allen was able to wreck us in those final moments. It means Dak Prescott had all the time in the world to find his receivers. It means we lost games we could have won simply because we couldn't generate pressure when it mattered most. But now we have Miller telling the world, this team is about winning. I'm about winning. That's why I'm here. And that mentality, that experience in high-pressure moments is exactly what this team needs. Dan Quinn, who has handled elite pass rushers throughout his career, watched Miller's tapes from last season and was genuinely impressed. What I saw on tape, the quickness to beat someone off the ball, Quinn said. And that's what the pass rush, the first part, has to be. It's about putting the offensive tackle on his heels and making him feel that pressure. If you don't have that, it's hard to put much pressure on a tackle. And here's what's crucial. Either you've got it or you don't. You can see it. It's not hard to evaluate someone who really has the ability to jump off the snap. Quinn isn't talking about future potential. He's talking about current ability. Present, what he saw in the 2024 tapes. But what I love most about Miller's statements is his brutal honesty about where he stands in his career. When I put my cleats on, when I get into my stance, I can feel it. I still have that explosiveness, Miller admitted. Probably not as explosive as when I was 21. That's just life. That honest self-assessment is exactly what you want. To hear from a veteran, he's now living in fantasies about being the same player he was a decade ago. He understands the realities of athletic aging. But I still have enough explosiveness to come out here and do what I do and be effective in the game. And here's the part that really excites me. I still feel like I have something to give this game. The trick is, you don't want to be kicked out of the league, but you also don't want to leave too early. I'm still in that sweet spot, and I'm doing everything in my power to stay there. That sweet spot mentality is fascinating because it shows. Miller is fully aware of his situation. He knows he's in the final years of his career, but he also knows he can still contribute significantly. He's not here for personal stat numbers. He's here to win. The usage plan for Miller is smart. They're going to use him along with Dorrance Armstrong as official starters, but the reality is Miller is going to be used strategically. In obvious pass situations in the fourth quarter. In critical moments where they need a sack, that's where they're going to deploy Miller. And this is crucial. Miller doesn't just bring his pass rushing ability. He brings 14 years of experience. Reading offensive tackles, understanding trends, knowing exactly when a quarterback is nervous. That experience is irreplaceable. Jacob Martin, Dietrich Wise Jr., and Clelin Ferrell are also in the mix. But none of them have Miller's pedigree. In high-pressure moments, none of them have been in a Super Bowl MVP performance. None of them have consistently generated pressure in playoffs for more than a decade. And you know what else I like about this situation? Miller is hungry. After a disappointing season with Buffalo, after dealing with injuries, he's coming to Washington with something to prove. The most dangerous players are those who feel they have something to prove. And Miller is definitely in that category. The preseason will be fascinating for Miller. Not because he needs to prove he can play, but because he will show exactly how he plans to fit into Quinn's system. The chemistry with Dorrance Armstrong, the rotation with other edge rushers, the coordination with our improved secondary, all. That will be seen in those preseason games. But if you think that's impressive, wait until you hear about the most shocking transformation in camp. Commanders fans, this is absolutely historic. Adam Peters' biggest, most expensive, and most criticized bet just arrived at training camp looking like a completely transformed player. Javon Kinlaw, the man who cost us $45 million. Over 3 years with $30 million guaranteed, showed up in Ashburn, and I swear by everything sacred, he looks like a completely different athlete. When Peters signed Kinlaw in March, everyone criticized it. National analysts said it was too much money for a player with an injury history. Local journalists questioned the wisdom of that investment. Fans on social media were furious. I had serious doubts myself. I'm not going to lie. But look at what's happening now. This man arrived at camp with a physical and mental transformation that has absolutely everyone in Ashburn talking. Kinlaw is officially listed at 319 pounds. But I tell you this with total certainty. There's no way in hell. That's his current weight. This man looks significantly slimmer, noticeably more defined, visibly more athletic. He has been working like a possessed man all off-season, and it shows in every step he takes, in every move he makes, in every exercise he executes. During the first day's drills, his explosiveness was undeniable. That renewed energy, that laser focus, that determination he's radiating is exactly what Peters had in mind when he made that controversial investment. Peters isn't a GM who makes impulsive decisions. Every move he makes is calculated, analyzed, projected. And I believe he saw something in Kinlaw that the rest of us couldn't see. But let's put into context why this transformation is so critical for our team. We desperately needed to replace Jonathan Allen. Allen was a Pro Bowler and anchor of our defensive line, a locker room leader. For years, he was one of our best defensive players. But his salary of over $18 million per year had become unsustainable for a team needing salary cap flexibility. Peters made that brutal but necessary decision to release Allen and immediately set his sights on Kinlaw as the replacement. That wasn't a decision made lightly. Peters and his scouting staff analyzed every snap Kinlaw had played in San Francisco. They studied his technique, his athleticism, his unrealized potential. They saw something that justified that massive investment. Kinlaw was the 14th pick of the 2020 draft. That wasn't a coincidence. The 49ers, one of the most sophisticated organizations in the NFL, saw something special in him when he came out of South Carolina. But injuries and inconsistency limited his impact in San Francisco. However, Peters clearly believes those problems were more about situation and health than fundamental ability. Joe Witt Jr.'s plan to use Kinlaw is absolutely brilliant. They're going to move him all over the defensive line. Interior as a 3 technique. Exterior as a 5 technique, even end rusher in passing downs. And now that Kinlaw has arrived with this improved and renewed physique, those tactical possibilities multiply exponentially dot. Can you imagine the headache that's going to be for offensive coordinators? A 6'5" guy with that natural muscle mass, but now more agile, more explosive, more versatile. Guards preparing to face a 320-pound nose tackle will find an athlete of 295 pounds who moves like someone 20 pounds lighter. But here's what really excites me, the psychological motivation. Kinlaw knows perfectly well that everyone doubted him. He knows his contract was ridiculed on national shows. He knows fans were skeptical. He knows he has to prove Peters was right to bet so heavily on him. And when a talented player like him, who was a top 15 pick just 4 years ago, has that motivation burning inside, when he has something to prove to the whole world, that's when truly special things can happen. The history of sports is full of athletes who use doubts as fuel to reach extraordinary levels. Reports from the first day of camp are absolutely electric. His improved attitude is noticeable. His renewed physique is obvious to anyone who sees him. His renewed explosiveness is leaving the coaches impressed. His focus and professionalism are on another level compared to what he showed in San Francisco. But let's delve deeper into what this transformation means tactically. In San Francisco, Kinlaw was primarily used as a 3 technique rushing from the inside. But with his new, more athletic physique, Witt Jr. can use him in multiple roles. Imagine this. First down, Kinlaw is inside as a nose tackle, occupying 2 blockers. Second down, he moves outside as a 5 tech, containing running plays. Third down, he slides to the edge as a pass rusher. That versatility is invaluable in the modern NFL offenses are constantly changing formations, using motion, trying to create mismatches. But if you have a player like Kinlaw who can effectively play multiple positions at the same level, that neutralizes many of those offensive advantages. And here's the detail many are overlooking. Kinlaw comes from South Carolina, the same program that produced Deebo Samuel, Marcus Lattimore, and other elite athletes. That athletic pedigree and competitive mindset are in his DNA. The talent was always there. The injuries and situation in San Francisco simply didn't allow him to show it consistently. Look, I've followed Peters very closely since he arrived. His success rate with his main signings has been exceptional over these 2 years. When Peters bets big on someone, when he invests that type of money and capital, he's generally right. Bobby Wagner was a success. Noah Brown exceeded expectations. Frankie Louvu was a revelation. Peters doesn't have a history of costly mistakes. And if he hits with Kinlaw, if this man becomes that dominant and versatile force we hope, this investment will not only be worth every penny, it will be a total game changer for our entire defense. A defensive line with Kinlaw moving all over the place, Darren Payne as an interior anchor, Jonathan Newton developing, that's depth and versatility that few defenses in the league can match. The early days of camp have been extremely promising. His physical transformation is undeniable. His renewed attitude is evident. His improved explosiveness is impressing coaches and teammates alike. But the true test will come when the lights turn on, when he's facing first-rate offensive lines, when the regular season begins and every snap counts. However, I ask you this. If Kinlaw becomes that dominant force that Peters envisioned, if his physical transformation translates into dominance on the field, if he justifies every dollar of those $45 million, who will be laughing at the end of the season? Peters will look like a genius, and we will have one of the most versatile and deep defensive lines in the entire league. So there you have it. Jackson causing surprises from the depths of the depth chart, Miller defying time and expectations, and Kinlaw arriving completely transformed and ready to justify Peters' biggest investment. 3 stories demonstrating that this training camp is going to be absolutely special, that will define narratives for the whole season. But I want to know exactly what you think. About these situations, do you believe that Tyree Jackson can really surprise and win a spot on the main roster, or do you think it's more realistic for him to develop in the practice squad? Do you completely trust that Von Miller still has that explosiveness and experience to be a determining factor in the most critical moments of the season? And the most important and controversial question, are you totally convinced that Javon Kinlaw's physical transformation will translate into the kind of dominant impact on the field that justifies those $45 million? Let me know in the comments which of these 3 news has you most excited and optimistic for the upcoming season. And if you want to keep receiving the most exclusive news, the deepest analysis, and the most honest opinions about our Washington Commanders, make sure to subscribe to the channel and activate those notifications. We're a family here, a passionate community that lives and breathes burgundy and gold every day, and I want you to be part of every moment, every development, every surprise of this season that promises to be absolutely historic. Give us a like. If you believe Adam Peters knew exactly what he was doing with each of these decisions, and subscribe if you're as excited as I am to see what other surprises this training camp holds for us. And always remember, hail to the Commanders!